Now let's move on to box plots in Matplotlib. And a box plot is a data distribution that is represented by boxes and whiskers. It takes a numerical array or arrays, and from that array it displays the mean along with the first quartile and the third quartile, and the whiskers extend up to 1.5 times the upper quartile and lower quartile. So here I imported the necessary libraries and I put our CSV file into a data frame, and we're only going to do the overall column. So before we create our box plot, let's create the figure. I'm going to set fig to plt.figure. I'm going to set the fig size to 5 by 5. And then we're going to create our axis and set that equal to fig.add axis. And we're going to put 0 and 0 for the first two arguments since we're only dealing with one figure. And we're going to set the last two to 1 because we want the fig size to be 5 by 5. And then let's create our box plot. Box plot. And we want the overall column in the player's data frame. Let's put plt.show because we only want the box plot. Oh, we need to put an equal sign. Let's run that. And you see we got our box plot. And we see this line represents the mean. This one represents the upper quartile. And the whiskers is 1.5 times the upper quartile. This is the lower quartile, and the whiskers, that's 1.5 times the lower quartile. And these little round things is the outliers. If we want to remove it, we set the show flyers argument to false. And let's run that. And you see the outliers was removed. And by default, it will be numbered. But if we want to put our own label, we just set the label argument to equals overall score. And let's run that. Oh, it's labels with an S. And you see we labeled our box plot. We can put two box plots on one figure, but first let's do some preparation for that. So I only want the inter players, and to get them, we call the players data frame. There's a column in our data frame called club name, and we're gonna set that equals to inter, and then we want the overall. Let me copy this, and for here we want Dortmund, and we set that to, in the club name column it's named Now let's create another variable and set that equals to Inter and Dortmund. Let's run that. Oh, this doesn't need a equals. Let's run this cell. And it's the player's data frame, not player. We keep getting mistakes. Club name. Oh, the club, it has an underscore. The name of the column, club name, is club underscore name. And now everything is fine. So let's create a box plot comparing the two different teams. I'm just gonna copy this here. And then I'm gonna set ax.boxplot, and in between the bracket, I'm gonna put data. Then I'm gonna write plt.show. Let's run that. And you see we fit both of our box plots inside of the figure. If we wanna change the default 1 and 2, we can set the labels to label equals Inter Milan. Let's run that. Let's see what's the problem. Oh, it's labels. Let's run that. And you see we changed the default labels. Now let's quickly just move into Violin plots. And let's create our Violin plots. We're gonna use the same figure and axis. And then we're gonna put the ax dot calling our Violin plot keyword. And let's put the data that we created up here. Let me add plc.show. Run that. And you see we created our Violin plots. If we want to add our box plot in the same axis with the Violin plot, we just call our this line right here. Control C. Put it here. And let's run that. And you see we put our box plot and Violin plots in the same axis.